To those who met him, John Wayne Gacy was quite the likable and friendly man. He was a frequent churchgoer and often described as a good Catholic. One of the many hats he wore was that of a sharp businessman. Gacy, a construction contractor, lived in the quiet suburb northwest of Chicago and made himself well known in his community for his political work and his help to charitable causes. He even made himself appear as if he loved to entertain children. He would dress up as a clown, an alter ego he dubbed Pogo the Clown. It would be fair to assume that Gacy fooled everyone into believing that he was a sharp, witty, kind, charming individual. However, the guise would soon be discovered as public perception of John Wayne Gacy would forever change, earning him the sinister name, the Killer Clown. John Wayne Gacy was born to a middle-class Irish Catholic family in 1942. There wasn't really much to his childhood, for it was often described that his childhood was really unremarkable. Arguably the most interesting thing to happen to Gacy as a boy was an accident on a playground that resulted in a blood clot forming in his brain, that of which caused him to have frequent blackouts until he was 16. He was a quiet boy, but according to many of his teachers, he was a good student. Despite that fact, he would later find himself dropping out of high school. Undeterred, he was enrolled in business school where his flair for sales was soon recognized, and he excelled in his first postgraduate job as a management trainee at a footwear company in Springfield, Illinois. It's here where he met his first wife, his coworker Marilyn Myers. His new father-in-law would then persuade him to move to Iowa, where Gacy would be offered a position within a chain of fast food restaurants that he owned. It's here where he began to develop his persona as a kind-hearted, hard-working man. He would help around the town and would volunteer around the neighborhood any way he could. In due time, his wife would give birth to 2 children, a boy and a girl, and it would seem as if Gacy would be living the American dream. However, this facade of the perfect life would soon come to an end. The first warning signs about Gacy's motives would first appear in 1964. It was then Gacy was found guilty of sodomizing 2 young boys that worked for the fast food establishment. He would be sent to jail for 18 months, and upon release would find that his wife had divorced him. After prison, he would find himself living with his mother for 4 months. To his mother's surprise, he appeared stable and seemed to have taken his time in prison quite admirably. His mother was impressed with how well her son had adjusted to life after prison, and bought Gacy a ranch-style house just outside Chicago. It's here where, yet again, he would develop good relationships with his neighbors. He would often join them in big festive events with children present, his neighbors oblivious to his criminal past. Gacy again had another encounter with the law when he was charged with forcing a young boy to perform sexual acts on him. Unfortunately, the charges were dropped due to the boy not appearing to Gacy's hearing. Gacy would then later marry again, this time to a divorcee named Carol Hofgren. She was in fact aware of his past sentence, but believed that he had become a reformed character. He would maintain his work in the community and would be known to the city folk as the cool guy, a result of him throwing lots of community gatherings. It's here he would enjoy dressing as a clown, visiting the sick children, and going to many children's parties. In due time, people began to notice the curious smells that emanated from the floor, which Gacy blamed on moisture buildup in the crawl space under the house. In 1974, Gacy started his own decorating business, PDM Contractors, which not only provided a steady supply of unsuspecting teenage employees to satisfy his impulses, but gave him an easy out if anyone asked about the curious smells. During July 1975, a teenager who worked for Gacy disappeared. His parents pleaded with Chicago police officers to investigate Gacy, but they never did. This would not be the last time worried parents asked officials to review Gacy as a suspect, but the police fell onto deaf ears. So says an article about Gacy on PrairieGhost.com. He and his wife later divorced due to Gacy's huge interest in gay pornography and huge marital disputes. Over the course of just a few years, he murdered 33 people, 29 were found underneath his house. He would plead insanity to avoid heading to prison. That, of course, did not work, and he was sentenced to jail with a death penalty. On May 10, 1994, he was put to death by lethal injection. It's obvious that Gacy killed many people, and when you listen to some of their stories, it honestly sends chills to the average person. Some of the more chilling encounters are recorded courtesy of PrairieGhost.com. Some of my favorites are the following. Johnny Bukovich, 17, began doing remodeling work for Gacy's company in an effort to raise money for his racing car. He enjoyed the position, it paid well, and he maintained a good working relationship with Gacy, until one pay period when Gacy refused to pay Johnny for 2 weeks of work. This was something that Gacy did often in order to save money. Angered that Gacy withheld his pay, Johnny went over to his employer's house with 2 friends in order to collect what was rightfully his. When he confronted him, Gacy refused to pay, and a loud argument erupted. Finally, he realized that there was little that he could do, and Johnny and his friends left. Bukovich dropped off his friends at home and drove off, never to be seen again. Gregory Godzik, 17, started working for PDM Contractors in order to finance parts for his 1966 Pontiac. He considered it an eyesore, but it was a consuming hobby for him. The work that he did for the Gacy paid well, and he liked it a lot. On December 12, 1976, Gregory dropped his date, a girl he had a crush on for a while, at her house and drove off towards home. The following day, the police found Gregory's Pontiac, but the boy was missing. More than a year later, another man named Robert Peace would vanish as well. The investigation into this disappearance would lead not only to the discovery of his body, but the bodies of Bukovich, Bonin, Carroll, Sink, Gilroy, and 27 other young men who suffered similar fates. These discoveries would not only horrify Chicago, but all of America. Many people would later come to know Robert Peace as a tragic hero. His discovery allowed the police to not only find other missing bodies, but send Gacy to prison with a looming death sentence. Gacy was a monster, through and through. His horrific crimes became a subject of study, and would be researched even today. His crimes also had a major influence in today's society. His killer clown persona would later find its way into the media as not only an outfit for Halloween, but an American Horror Story in the form of Twisty the Clown. It's shocking to see Gacy have such an active presence in our society, even more shocking that in 2017, this year, forensics and investigations are still discovering the identity of some of Gacy's victims, whom for a long time were left unknown. John Wayne Gacy was an interesting case study, though a horrific one at that. Well, let me leave you with this one small factoid. John Wayne Gacy was a surprisingly good artist. Most of his works can be found with a quick Google search, but the originals were donated to Museum of Death, where they still remain.